We were going over deep half guard reversals. I will not go with a lot of detail, but I will go with these flow patterns that go to submissions. So the first one is the one we did the other day. Pretty simple. So the drill, I'm not going to correct any deep detail, and it's okay if you mess it up. We do a lot of privates, Martin and myself, and sometimes like they're messing stuff up, and then as long as they keep repping it and repping it, they start to develop this flow of it. And then they start realizing this is off, that's off, and there's refinement, and it gets better and better. Some of these people, Amadeo's seen them, and there's a gentleman, he's well known in what he does, in show business and what he does. He's only been doing it 3 months, and that gentleman, Amadeo, said it perfectly the other day. He's like, man, 3 months, this guy could do things that others can't. And in a lot of classes that have been here 10 times the amount of time. And the only reason is because he just reps these flow patterns. We just have him literally do this for an hour to the point he's exhausted. And when he does it, he doesn't even think. It's so funny to watch because 3 months ago, he didn't know anything about BJJ. And if you saw him move around now, you'd go like, wow, how long has he been doing this? 2 years, 3 years? No, he's been doing it 3 months, and so it's twice a week. And all he does is these flow patterns, and we take them left and right and left. And now he's just become like this I'm not going to call him a puppet, but he kind of just repeats the patterns, and it's really fun to watch because it's only 3 months, and it's really shocking. So these things are important to do. So you're here like this, and I'll explain it now. So the first one, right, we were going deep half guard reversal. We had a couple of details that we thought are kind of critical. One is this kneecap doesn't flare to the ceiling. It's tight to the ground because I want to be able to hold his kneecap down. I want to be able to pull this ACL back through here by pulling at this ankle. I'm pulling at his hip, right? And I'm also trying to manage what I can do with this hand, okay? I'm going to say that you're going to scoop it, keep it pretty simple. I'm here, I'm pulling back, I'm throwing him over. As we land, I block, I step, I run up, I secure my position, I start my vertical climb. As I land in this spot, I drop my hip, I butterfly over, I start my crank. Boom, I finished. I go left and right, okay? Pretty simple pattern. Let's keep the pattern going, and I'll keep changing the pattern, right? So every reaction will have a new pattern. Sometimes you're gonna land there, sometimes you're gonna turn. Sometimes you're gonna land there and you're gonna lose the arm, he's gonna kip you. You have to know how to answer every pattern, okay? So let's part up and let's get started. 1, 2, top, 8, reverse him. You know the one where you turn on the first turn when he comes over on the reversal and you make the first turn. I want him to go gift wrap. Let me just show you what I mean, guys. And the next pattern. Let me take him for a second. But Mark, come over here a second. You're gonna go reversing, right? But sometimes when you go in reversing, they're gonna turn on you too quick. So when you're landing like this, you're landing, and then Martin makes the turn, and you're sitting like this, and you couldn't have controlled. You weren't. Remember, I said, if you remember the other day where I told you your head position should have ran up on this side of his dividing line. So your head position should have ran up here before this hand cleared you over the top of the ear. That's what you should have done because you were trying to stabilize your mount. But he also knows if you hit the mount, those are 4 points, also terrible position. Now if you have any form of fabric, now I got issues of getting collar choked and head and arm choked and dominated on a mount. So he's turning hard on me, but I'm late on that. And now he made a turn. So I try to catch him again. I'm just going to run up high and now try to figure out what quadrant I'm going to take after the turn. So when you first came on the turn, now the pattern changed, he clears me over the ear. There's no choke anymore, right? So if I was here like this, I'm sitting here and I go pull back and I'm landing and I go, okay, and I'm sitting here like this. My first reaction is to slide this kneecap up as high up on the backside as possible. This leg is going to have different outcomes. We're going to say in this particular outcome, my knee position was in front of his knee position. And I don't want to get too crazy about this because if I start explaining this, then you're going to get lost on me and then we'll never get past the first 10 minutes of this here. When I first landed, I was like this. So my first reaction is this knee spins up high like this because now I'm going to have a couple of options at this point. If you're a high-level player and the game is happening so fast, you're not going to get a chance to go gift wrapping and locking up this Kimura. There's no way. Okay, so this is what I mean by it. If he didn't know too much, I could potentially open up his collar here, grab a good choke, finish it so easy, right? But this is no-gi, and I've run up like this, but he's not really experienced, so I'm able to lock my gift wrap up, sit back with him. Yeah, I get it. Potentially even go lacing his legs, leaning over, taking his arm, like, don't do that. But I know people do it, but that's dangerous in no-gi and street fight. Like, you go down on that. What if your head hits the pavement? So understand when you're going to do that. So that's what I'd like to do. So if you feel safer, and that's what I would like you to do, because BJ is about control before submission, but high-level play, man, you got to stay on that back. And he's going to pull back on you too quick, because, like, technically, if I'm like this, and he keeps the pattern going this way, there's no way that I'm not gonna get my first hook on that back side. Because in this scenario, I told you I had this hook first. So you gotta understand, like, as he's turning, my goal right now is to get that hook in there, or potentially lace this hand back in here, because my hand positions were like this. So if Martin kept coming up, keep coming, turn, right? I'm potentially lacing this hand because I'll catch my fingertips. So one of the two is what I'm looking for, because I have inside connection on this side. So if I know what's going on, I'm not on the outside over here. I had a scenario that I painted, and your read and reaction should have been based on that scenario. So when you're landing like this, your first reaction is to spin up. So we're gonna do this, that we're gonna catch the Kimura. The gentlemen that are thinking about doing ADCC, you're not gonna get a chance. You're not gonna get a chance to lock this Kimura up, because by the time you make this transfer, it's already too many things have occurred. So your first reaction is, instead of worrying about this, is to grab this neckline and spin high, because as I pull back with it, I wanna try to trap this arm with this leg. Try your best, okay? There's different scenarios on this, right? Come back for a second. There's different scenarios on this. When you pull back on this, he most likely is going to be sitting so low in the pocket that you're not going to be able to get under his neck, right? So you're going to have to turn it into a reverse triangle, right? So that's what, I hope everybody understands that. Sometimes, right, what happens in the beginning is people don't feel comfortable sliding so high up here, and they'll sit low on it like this, right? And not the end of the world, but if he's a big guy and I try to pull him back, sometimes it's really hard to get him over this thigh. And now he's pulling back to get his back to the mat, because that's what they've been taught, right? Back to the mat on a back escape, right? So it's ingrained in them. So when I first came this way, I don't want to get impeded here. I also, when I pull back, like, he might be too big and I can't get him over this hand. But if I slide this guy up, because all I have to clear is these toes, right? Instead of having this whole shin on the backside of his lap. So now when I fall this way, before I was down here, and I'm going to imagine that I could do it, and I brought him back, and I land here, and I say, take this out, but now I'm so underneath his throat that I can finish this with one hand. But if I did the equation and the math in my head as this is all occurring, he's this massive man, and if I sit this low, and there's any distance on this gap, and I'm not sitting tight on that pocket, and my hand position now is off, because he's 6 foot, he's 5'11", 255. And now my hand on my loop is short, because he's got shoulders like this. And now this wasn't perfect, and when I go pull back, he's such a massive man, and our strength differentials are great. And I'm playing technique for technique, and you're going, and I'm leaving gaps, and now your strength starts to go like this, and my technique wasn't perfect, right? So when I tell you about drilling, perfection, you drill perfection, because you got to get a feel for every limb on every body part of his. So you start to feel the game. So you're here like this. So this leg is curled tight up here high, because I want to fall back with a purpose and a vision, right? But now when I did this, because the man was so big and strong, when I had this curl and I fall back, his neckline is going to be sitting low on me, right? So I'm not going to be, I can adjust it and potentially get back, but he's going to be sliding down, because again, put your back to the mat. He's on your back, so he's going to be fighting to get his back to the mat. So I can't allow it to happen. So I'm sitting here like this, and I slid so high up, and I'm curled underneath. But as we're falling back, and I'm trapping this leg, I'm sitting like this. And now how can I get back to the neck? So my first reaction at this point is just to get his elbow over his head. So I've done everything right on the bottom. So my first reaction is just to grab onto his elbow on his far side. I start I went from this grip. This is where I was. I reach. I start bringing it up over his head. Now I don't know if he's going to turn left and right on me. I just know that I don't have to deal with a lot of big muscles, actually quite weak ones, because all I'm affecting is the deltoid on this point. I'm not trying to affect the lat. I'm trying to raise the deltoid. If anybody's done lateral raises, you will tire out instantly on lateral raises. So you're going to get this arm up. Whether it goes up in 30 seconds or 45, it's coming up. So as soon as we land here, I'm going to alter my leg positions. At this point, I'm going to leave him flat. So I'm going to take my leg and readjust myself, bring my leg up high, figure four myself. Sometimes you will get the choke. Sometimes you'll be off on the arteries. Hopefully you can finish him with the choke. I feel like I'm on right now that I could finish Mark. But if I can't, no big deal. I start looking for his wrist. I start bringing it back to my chest line. I put it behind my back, and it's the worst one that you could do. You'll just sever that arm, right? So everybody, same pattern. I went to mount. Bottom player, do not be an idiot. I'm being honest with you. Like when it's your turn, you want your partner to do everything right. Live in the moment. It starts to teach you to live in the moment. 90% of humans, they come up to you and go, hey man, how you doing? They could give a shit how I'm doing. They're not, it's just a statement they make. They're not sincere about it, make no eye contact with me, give me this weak ass handshake like, yeah, I know. And when young men do it to me, I grab them. And when they try to walk away, I don't let them, right? And my wife thinks I'm crazy and they turn around and go, and yeah, I go, hey, I'm doing well, thank you for asking, right? So, and I call them out on it because that's the truth. But all those things are done through habit. So try your best when you're the bottom player. When you turn, when he reverses you, you make that turn and clear his ear because he's got to get the feel. Pause on the 45 because I'm going to say that you came back. If you're very inexperienced and you haven't started, lock up your Kimura. It's safer. If it was a street fight, I would say lock up your Kimura. It's safer. One more time. So when you came up on this reversal, you were here. You're dragging this ACL and you're pulling his back. You're blocking him, go, okay, I'm here. And now we're like this. If you're new to it, I'm just going to ask you to land here, lock up your gift wrap. It's a great position to be in. Adjust yourself nicely, fall back with him. You're in a great spot. Trap his arm. Slide your leg behind. Right, start focusing. His arm's out of the equation. My toes are on the center line of his spinal cord. I've totally taken this arm out. What's my goal at this point? Let me just reach for this elbow. I'm going to win this battle. I'm going to take my hand out. I'm going to just own this elbow and I'll put it up over his head. Now I can make these adjustments. Now I start bringing this. If I can finish him on this, great. Sometimes I'll be off on the arteries. That's fine with me also. I will start bringing this thing to my chest. Once I have it in my chest, I'm not going to arch. I'm just going to lace my body behind it. And now this is the worst break you can. You can totally snap that arm now. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Third pattern. Next week we rep patterns, right? So when you bring him over, sometimes you're not going to mount, and he's going to beat you on everything. And he's coming up quick, and you got to make sure you get him back down, whether it be real fighting, because in the street, like, you know, for us, it becomes even Steven once we hit the ground. But standing up, you could be a beginner, man, and you're throwing haymakers, you can land those things. I've seen it where one guy, like, whatever, he thinks he's like a 10th degree black belt in Taekwondo, and then he meets this guy, never had a fight in his life, and he's just throwing these haymakers, and he landed on a chin, and this guy that was doing all these stances and, you know, doing knife blocking and all this stuff went out the window. Johnny, there was no such thing as privates. That didn't exist. And years ago, there was a gentleman that said, hey, why don't we ask John to teach us? John wasn't an instructor. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, we'll throw him a few dollars and he can show us moves on the side. And I went, you serious? And he was like, yeah, let's do this. I said, go ask him. And Johnny, I think, charges $25 years later. Yeah. And the private was like 3.5 hours. That gentleman lived in Huntington, Long Island in Greenvale. And it was on Friday nights. And after, because there was no morning class. It was 12:30 to 2, or you can come at night, 2 classes. There was only one no-gi class. That was on Friday afternoon. There was nothing else. You had no choice. You could do either one. And that became how that developed with the privates, because then Johnny started showing us stuff, and then we were running through the room because we had access to knowledge, and then people were going to him, and then they were trying to figure out how to stop us. But it became this comical show of like these two sides battling about it. But let's go back to the deep half guard reversal. When you bring him over, sometimes he's going to turn on you too quick, right? You're sitting here like this, and you're here like this, and you go ripping this back. And now you're landing, and he's turning too quick, and you're coming up like this, and you went, I didn't land the mount, right? I didn't get over the top. Remember the position before was I beat that, but that's fine, okay? I'm gonna ask you to rep the same pattern again, but now when he comes up, you're gonna let him. So now he beat you on the arm, he beat you on the leg, and now he's up in turtle. But his momentum is shifting now. When he comes up, Mark, can you go in there and deal with him? So I'm on the top. When his momentum is shifting, right, on the deep half guard reversal, I want to keep the ball going. So when he comes up, he's going to grab, perfect, same thing, right? He's going to land in this position, right? And now you're going to have, let me in there for a second. The reason I'm going to stop him is Martin landed up in a perfect position to drag this leg. Sometimes you will, okay? But I also want to put it in your head that I'll let you do either one, that when you come over, let me just say, when you're here with them and you bring them over, right? I brought them over, they're here like this, they come over, and now they're running so quick, I'm most likely going to end up with this ankle if it happens so fast, because my trailing leg is coming up, and now if he beat me on the turn, Martin and A for a second, when they followed, no, come down. When he came up, Martin beat him on this ankle and came up so quick that he pinned it and then butterflied it in. So it's a gauge about read and reaction. Yeah, I'd like to be there, but I'm not saying that you got there. I'm giving it to the worst case scenario that you didn't get to that. If I had that, then I have dominant position. I can start dragging the ankle, flipping it over to the other side. Like there's this endless array of new possibilities that just open up for me. But I'm not playing that. I said worst case scenario. He beat you on both things. So what am I going to do at this point? I'm going to grab his ankle and reach for his other kneecap, suck him out, and then I'm going to ask you to do the move that we just did. I'll explain it right now. I'll go super slow with it. So just get the pattern down. Next week we'll get faster at the pattern. When you're here pulling this back, he comes up. Let's move this back a second. Yeah, right? Ethan's coming up like this. I'm catching his ankle. Remember I said his hips are rotating like this, right? When you pull him out, drive this kneecap to this hip. Close this pocket before he gets, because it'll give you opportunities to backstep this way, spin it to his back. I'm telling you the pattern, but also I want to be able to choose my pattern based on his next sequencing. So when I first came up like this, he's coming up so quick that I'm going, boom. I just jammed in my secondary leg. So my kneecap is deep right now, okay? I can catch his ankle every single time. That's not, he can have a big head start. You will always be able to touch this ankle, right? Because in this case scenario, he beat me on every turn. It's impossible for you to tell. He would have to be 8 feet tall and his ankle limb would have to be here and you go like, that's not realistic, okay? So you're gonna get his ankle. Don't be late on the read. So if I jammed in and now I'm landing like this, my next position, isn't it the same one? Kneecap goes high. I'm sliding up high behind him. I'm getting my gift wrap. I'm falling back to the other side. I'm isolating, doing the same pattern again from the other side, right? No different, right? And potentially you lose it. I'm learning how to follow my man left and right, left and right. Once I'm on him, you can't lose him. You should, and I'm gonna throw some, because I know somebody like Elliot will lose sleep on it. Like George, I'm passionate about BJJ, insane about it. I get it, man, because I am too. And then what ends up happening, it won't be about the submission anymore. You'll just go, Dad, I can't believe I lost him. Like, I can't believe he even recovered. Like, forget about the submission. Like, you will lose sleep because you lost dominant position. It's like getting reversed. If you competed a long time, and in class, I know who competes and who doesn't, so it doesn't matter. But if you're into competition and you get reversed with your friend, man, don't forget about it. Your wife's in trouble, man. Shit's gonna go bad at home, man. You're gonna be cranky all weekend. You don't want to talk to anybody. It gets that deep on you. And I know Mr. L. I know it does too. But that's why I love you, baby. You know. So George and Z, I get it, man. So be passionate about the sport because it drives me, and it makes me happy to share it with you guys. So let's try to do that. You had 3 patterns, right? The last one I suggest that we try to do it slowly. So you start learning to go left, right, follow your man. And then next week, we'll get faster and faster at the patterns and add more patterns. Okay, guys? Let's do it. We got about 8 minutes to go.